Most days, I take my health for granted. I think I'm in relatively good health. Sure, I could be in better shape, but overall, I think I'm pretty healthy. Today's guest is the real Billy Z, as he's known on the internet. He's also someone who is in pretty good health. In fact, he was a big sports guy. He even worked at ESPN. He loved basketball. And then around age 30, he started falling down. He was having more and more trouble with his legs, but didn't know what was happening. Today, you'll hear his story and how it relates to pizza. This is Chris Spear, and you're listening to Chefs Without Restaurants, the show where I speak with culinary entrepreneurs and people working in the food and beverage industry outside of a traditional restaurant setting. I have 31 years of working in kitchens, but not restaurants, and I currently operate a personal chef service, throwing dinner parties in the Washington, D.C. area. So after a lot of testing, it turns out that Billy has limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. It's a genetic disease, but nobody in his family apparently has it. I'll let you listen to Billy tell that story. So why are we talking about it here? Well, Billy started cooking at home and eventually fell in love with pizza. And while he makes many kinds of pizza, he has a signature pie called the Tripping Billy. And what he's been doing with this is going to pizzerias around Chicago and doing collabs. He lets the pizzeria adapt it into their style. So one place might have a Detroit pie and another place might have a tavern-style pizza. And part of the proceeds are going to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. To date, Billy's raised over $50,000 for them. I don't know when you're listening to this episode, but currently in the month of May 2024, you can find the signature Tripping Billy pizza at Pequod's in Chicago every Thursday night throughout May. Billy's story is inspiring for sure, and it's also fun if you like pizza, because we talk a lot about pizza. And while $50,000 is a lot of money, I'm sure it's just a drop in the bucket when it comes to funding something like the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So I'm sharing a link in the show notes, as well as on the chefswithoutrestaurants.org website. If you click that link, you can go over and throw them some money in Billy's name. As I've said before, I'd love to have a philanthropic aspect to this community. So let's support the people who are in this community doing amazing things. As always, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this. The show will be coming right up after a word from our sponsor. As a lifelong bourbon enthusiast, I've always been captivated by its rich complexity and fascinated by its history. Bourbon was the first spirit I'd tried when I was old enough to drink. I only wish I'd started with the good stuff. That's why I'm excited to introduce you to Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond. Born from the Shapira family's unwavering passion since 1935, this bourbon's a testament to quality and tradition. Heaven Hill Distillery goes beyond the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897, aging this bourbon for 7 years, 3 more than required, creating a richer, more sophisticated flavor profile. When you select this premium Bottled and Bond bourbon, you're also ensured that you're getting a bourbon that's been made in a single distillation season and that it's been bottled at exactly 100 proof. This commitment to excellence is evident in every sip. But don't just take my word for it. Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond won the double gold at the 2023 World Spirits Competition in San Francisco, New York, and Singapore, as well as the 2023 Triple Still Award from the Tasting Alliance. Discover the award-winning Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond for yourself. Whether you enjoy it neat, on the rocks, or as the cornerstone of a cocktail, it's a bourbon that stands apart. Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond delivers a flavor profile that's unmatched. Available nationally at your local retailer. Embrace the premium quality that Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond brings to every sip. Heaven Hill reminds you to think wisely, drink wisely. Hey, how's it going? Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I am anticipating this kind of going in a whole bunch of different places. I anticipate talking about sports and pizza and muscular dystrophy, something probably we've never dug into here. I don't know, does it make sense to start talking about sports? Because that seems like, such a big part of your life, especially on the younger. Were you always into sports? Like, were you a kid who played sports and was obsessed with sports?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I was a kid who grew up on the south side of Chicago. So, in the 90s, I was born in the 80s, but like grew up in the 90s.
Bulls fan?
Diehard Bulls fan, Jordan. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
In the 90s, I didn't think your basketball teams were actually like allowed to lose. We rarely lost. Like the 1996 season, we lost 10 games. Like the entire year lost 10 games, and that's what I grew up around. So, I watch a Bulls game and watch Jordan, Pippen, Rodman win a championship, and then I go into my driveway and try to mimic it. I'm always doing the 5, 4, 3, and I'm just trying to hit a buzzer beater in the driveway. So I had that growing up. I had the hoop dreams. I love basketball is my favorite sport. I played other sports too, but basketball's always been my love. And yeah, I played it forever, and played throughout like high school and stuff. And then I you know I wanted to one day go to the NBA, and that wasn't going to happen because I was 5'9" and I couldn't dunk. So it was my dreams of taking it to a professional level weren't ever going to happen. But I decided to follow and get into a career around sports, and I loved writing. I loved being creative, and so I decided to study journalism, and I double majored in college in broadcast and print journalism. So I was a writer. I hosted a radio show, and I eventually interned and then got hired at ESPN Radio here in Chicago. And started out as a producer. Produced the White Sox World Series. Was one of my first really cool. It's my first gig kind of as a professional. Then I produced Bulls games and started producing sports talk shows, and eventually produced the number one sports talk show in Chicago called the Waddle and Sylvie Show. And my job and task was to create all of the audio elements on the show, all the creative work. Basically, anything you heard on the show that wasn't the host speaking was done by me. So like the highlight packages, the funny little bits, the intros, the music, everything was controlled by me. And I just love to be able to take the thoughts and goofy things in my head and bring those to life. And it was sports were really like everything to me. I loved it, being able to play it and also working in a career in it. It was cool. It was like my dream.
Yeah, I imagine like as a sports fan, if you're not, very few people are of the caliber to play at like the NBA or something like that. So I imagine like that's almost next best. Like if you're a sports
Yeah.
guy I mean, ESPN, come on. I mean, like that's, there's no one better in the sports, broadcasting journalism kind of area.
That was my goal. My goal was always, I had options when I was in college. I was always an ambitious person, still to this day. And obviously we'll learn more about my story and my ambitions and stuff. But when I was a freshman in college, just to kind of give a little background, I started hosting a radio show and kind of getting my feet wet a little bit. And I hosted a sports talk show called the Practice Squad, which was a reference to a practice squad in football, which is basically a group of players that aren't good enough to be on the main team, but they're just waiting. If somebody gets injured, they're the next guy up to join the main roster. And that was my joke about I'm in college. I'm not ready for the big leagues yet, but like one day I'm gonna get there. And I would reach out to all the local teams, the Bulls, Bears, Cubs, Sox, to try to get media passes, so I can go to the locker rooms and learn how to cover an event as a professional. But I was in college, and usually if they find out you're a college radio station, or they just assume you're a college student, they're not going to approve it. I was able to get around it by just using the call letters of the radio station. So we were WLRA, and I never said we were Lewis University, the college I went to. And I ended up getting media passes for the Bulls and Bears, and I got a taste of professional experience at a very young age. And so I learned how to handle myself in a press box professionally, watching a game, going to a Bears game as a college student, but in a press box is very different than watching it as a fan. You're not cheering, you're not clapping. You can see the best play in the world happen in front of you. You just have to watch. And I learned how to be professional, and that at that point I knew, okay, the next step for me is the four letters. I want to be at ESPN, and that was like my goal. And I basically fixated over it until I finally got a connection, a contact, and then interviewed and started an internship, and the internship led to a job. And I had I basically worked almost 9 years there. I had some great stories that'll last a lifetime for me. But the career, the output for all of the effort that I put into it, working countless hours, the hustling, the pay in the business was very difficult, and I had to work two jobs to make it work. And it got to the point where I was just kind of getting burnt out, and I decided I kind of wanted more in life than just having a cool job. And I had to make a decision to kind of get out of that career, and I ended up doing that. And I've been in the same business now. I've been now for 13 years, same industry, but it's very different than sports and in media. But that is where my heart, lied. Basically, majority of my childhood into my early adult life.
I do think that's sad. We see a lot of those parallels, like in the food industry. Like
Yeah,
people they want to be a chef or they want to work in the food industry, and it's like, oh, well, the pay sucks, the
it's
benefits
hard.
suck. You're quite often exploited. There's a whole big conversation around staging and stuff like that. It's like, the honor to work for free for one of these really great people, and is that even something we should legally be doing? And um, but that like there's some things that you really love and have a passion for, but ultimately they don't pay the bills or take care of you, and or it could just be like a toxic work environment, things like that. And
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. In radio, just like in restaurants, like it's the parallel between media, I mean, sports media, just media in general, and the restaurant industry really do go hand in hand. Because, if I wanted to continue working in sports media, I could have done that. I was one of the best, known as one of the best sound producers in the city and could have worked my way up. And I could have maybe down the road made something work. But, I watch people like the host of the show that I produced. He hustled for almost 25 years to get to that point. And it's like, I don't, some people have it in them. I just didn't. I didn't have it in me to do that. And you'll see that with people in the restaurant industry. They've just been working countless 70-hour weeks, never get to see family, and make the sacrifices to make it work because it's what their passion is. So, we sometimes have to be faced with our decisions that, is this worth it? Is there something bigger for me? And sometimes, you might have to take the harder route and pivot. And pivoting, you'll learn about learn about here. Sometimes it can be great, but it also can be very difficult.
so how do we connect the dots between sports and your love of sports and, let's say, food and cooking? What happened there? Why don't we dig into that? Because you can't, I mean, you need that middle part of the story, and then we'll dive into the food story.
Yeah, I think it's just a little like just a little bit minor details, I would say. So it kind of carries on into the timeline I was talking about before. So I was about 29 when I left media, and yeah, right around the age of 30, I was still playing basketball more recreationally, just a couple nights a week with friends for a couple hours. We'll just rent out a gym and play, and all of a sudden I started experiencing these really weird balance issues while playing. I would be on defense, for example, and just like backpedaling and losing my balance and falling over. Or I may decide I want to, take a move on a quick cut to a different direction. All of a sudden I fall over and I trip. And I just assumed I was getting older, and I'm 30 and I'm over the hill, and this is just what it looks like now.
Come
That's
on now.
no, that's what I thought at the time. I had no idea because it wasn't like constant. It was maybe like once every 5, 6 games or something. It was just enough. It was like enough to like kind of question it, but like also I just did what any guy in his early 30s probably would do for the most part, just ignore it. And though as time went on, those falls would happen more often, and I was noticing more and more issues with like running and moving around a little choppier, and those falls that would happen on the basketball court would start to happen around my apartment. I'd noticed like getting up and down stairs was even getting like a little difficult. Getting out of a seat, just like little everyday things.
But you must have known that that wasn't normal for someone who's 30, right?
Yeah, yeah, but at the time, at the age of 30, it was still very minor. It took a little bit for it to progress to be noticeable. It was more just like at the start, it was like, yeah, no, I just thought I was just tripping. I literally just thought I was uncoordinated or something. I'm just kind of getting up there. But then as like slowly, a year passes, 2 years pass, that's when I'm noticing things like the muscle mass in my legs getting smaller. Like I would wear like tights or like leggings under my basketball shorts, and I'd notice like I'd kind of pull at them, tug at them, and they were loose. And they're called tights for a reason. They shouldn't be
Yeah,
baggy. And
yeah.
and so that's the point where it was starting to become a little more eye opening. And then I went on a trip. I went to Paris. And I was at the Notre Dame Cathedral. There's a spiral staircase that you can go up to like a nice city view, and I struggled getting up those stairs, like pulling myself on the railing to get up there. And I finally got to the top, and I was like drenched in sweat. And at that point, I realized, like, okay, when I get back home, I got to go to the doctor. And so I started going to the doctor to figure out what was going on, why I was losing my balance, why my legs were becoming weaker. And I got nothing but a bunch of medical bills. I did a bunch of tests. You name the tests, I've done them,
No
and
answer.
no answers, no answers. And this went on for years. Um, I would hide this. Friends didn't know, family didn't know. Like close friends may have like noticed like little things, like, oh, it looks like you're limping a little bit. I'm like, what I would do is I just worked out really hard during that time. I tried to fight whatever was going on, and it was basically just kind of putting a band-aid on something bigger. So like when people would notice, hey, you're a little slow getting up those stairs, you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, it was just leg day, I'm sore. I would just make excuses up because I didn't have an answer. I stopped going to the doctor because I felt like I was getting no direction there. And I'm falling a lot. Like I would fall constantly, and thankfully I never really hurt myself, but I would just keep getting up, and it just kind of became, the term new normal was a thing that we all learned during COVID, but it was like my new normal, and it was weird. I was just kind of pushing it in the back of my mind, even though something was obviously very serious was happening. And
Well, what were doctors saying? I mean, were they just like, you came in, they didn't have an answer, and it was just like no follow? Like, I can't imagine that.
no,
I mean, it sounds like a pretty huge deal, and for a doctor to like just like not follow up. You didn't have someone who was like, okay, we're gonna try this. Oh, we're gonna try this. Like,
we did. I literally tried like six different tests, and they all came back inconclusive. They said like we think there might be some type of muscle disease, but we don't, they don't have any proof.
hmm.
And it was at the time there weren't a lot of advancements in the medical industry regarding what was going on. So yeah, I just kept kind of like carrying it on and living in a, to put it like nicely, kind of living a lie. Like people would say, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Or I have some kind of muscle thing going on." That's what I would say. I have some kind of muscle thing going on. I never had an answer. And so flash forward now, this is 2020, um, and all of a sudden gyms shut down. There's a little thing called a pandemic that happens, and our lives around the world change. My life specifically changed when gyms closed. All of a sudden, I went from having an active lifestyle. Even though I was falling, I was still active. I still tried to work out. At that point of my life, I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't get up and down stairs without a railing. I had a real disability, and I was just trying to do what I can and do adaptive things to just fight whatever was going on. But all of a sudden, gyms close, and now I go from an active lifestyle to a sedentary lifestyle, and then I start to see more of a decline in a quicker, more obvious site where I would fall maybe a couple times a week in the house. And like I said, I can't get upstairs anymore. Even when I was sitting down, I had to just push up a little bit to stand up. And everything was kind of, it was almost at a standstill because even hospitals were filled because of COVID. So I couldn't really even go to the hospital to get checked out. But then everything changed. February 13th, we're coming up on the anniversary of it. I was with my girlfriend, who's now my fiance, Rachel, and we wanted to get out of the house. This is now actually 2021. We're at February 13th of 2021. We decided to get out of the house a little bit, and maybe just go to like this little outlet mall that's in Chicago or just outside of Chicago here, just to get a change of scenery. I take one step out of my car and I fall. My leg gives out, and this time I can't get up. I fell hundreds of times over the years, but I've never hurt myself. I always just kind of pulled myself back up and carry on.
So you're just laying in a parking lot on the
I'm
ground.
laying I'm laying on the floor in this cold parking garage. There's still like some snow and like mud on the ground, and I'm just sitting there and I felt something pop. So I'm in shock at the moment. So I'm just telling my friends, like, give me a second, I'll get up. Just give me a second. There's cars passing by, looking like saying, "Do you need help? Do you need help?" I'm like, no, just give me a second. And I compose myself, push myself up, and just hop to the car. And I laugh about it now because there's something it's just me in a nutshell. I'm sitting in the car and Rachel turns to me, and she's like, "Are you? What are you? What are you thinking?" I'm like, give me a couple minutes. We'll go shopping in a moment. Let me just recoup.
Are you
And she
crazy?
goes,
What?
yeah. Well, she goes, did you look down at your foot? I'm like, what? And I looked down, and I was wearing this pair of Adidas, they're called Ultra Boost sneakers, and they're basically all mesh. And I can see, I'm looking down at my foot, and all you see is like something just pointing and pushing up against the mesh. And
Like
it was my
your toe? Was it your
my
big
big
toe?
toe. My big toe
Mm.
dislocated, and it like a joint dislocated in my big toe, and it popped straight up. So I was like, yeah, we'll go shopping.
Ouch.
She's like, yeah, no, and I'm in pain, but it's like at the moment I'm just in shock. So we end up going to the ER, and then I experienced the worst pain of my life, and they had to pop this toe back in, and it was just the worst pain ever. But now I'm in the ER talking to the doctors there, and they're saying like, what happened? And I said, I fell, and they're like, did you fall off of something? I'm like, no, I literally took a step, and they're like, there's like a 20% or less. I think it was, I don't say 20. I think it's probably like, I think it was like 5% chance that can dislocate without like me breaking my foot. But the fact that I didn't fall from a height or anything, I literally just took a step, and my body buckled forward on it. Um, they said, that's a, this obviously there's something happened to do this. I'm like, well, I have an underlying issue, and I kind of explained what was going on, and they said, okay, well, you know, you need to go see a neurologist. And my fiance, really close friend, worked at Rush Medical Center here in Chicago. She was a neurologist, but she specialized in a different field. But she was able to reach out to another doctor and said, hey, I have a doctor for you. I'm going to set an appointment up for you next week. You need to go. And so that was a wake up call to go to the doctor, because I didn't go back since 2016. So I went almost 4.5 years between doctor visits, and I watched my body decline over the years. So now it's March of 2021, and I go to the doctor. We talk about it. We do tests, and he says, "Hey, here's the deal. I did some research. I think you may have a form of muscular dystrophy. Um, there's genetic testing which was not available when you were here in 2016. There's been a lot of advancements. I'm gonna rub a swab in of your take a swab of your nose and your cheek, and there's an 88% chance we'll get a diagnosis." So I said, whatever you need to do, do it. And a week and a half later, after 8 years of trying to figure out why I was losing my balance and falling, and all my body was changing, I was diagnosed with what's called limb girdle muscular dystrophy 2L. It is a very rare form of muscular dystrophy that you're born with, um, but it can take shape at any point in your life. And there are like 28 different subtypes of this specific disease that affect different, people in different ways, and severities and such. But mine, I was born with it. It's a genetic disease with no one in my family having any type of history toward it. So
Really? No, nobody in your
yeah,
family had this. So
nothing.
nobody was saying like, "Hey, you should check on this because your cousin or someone had." Like it wasn't a thing that you knew in
No,
your
we went
family.
through we went through a family tree. There's nothing. So it's like the sheer chance that it even happened to me was like lottery ticket, basically, like a bad lottery ticket. And
I don't know. I always in my mind thought that it was something like you'd be born with and you'd know that there would be like a 3-year-old toddler who had it. Is it rare for it to like come on at this stage in life?
yeah, yeah, it was more of a. I mean, it can take shape at any point in your life, but usually people have some kind of some kind of indication. I didn't. I mean, not until I was 30, and to make to make a food reference, it's like I didn't just have like an appetizer. I had a full meal of experience of life experience, playing sports and being active, and all of a sudden now at the age 38, I get diagnosed with a rare disease. I have a disability, and the disease is progressive, so it's going to get worse as time goes on. And but I have no timetable of how that's going to look or what it may look like. I could be physically the same 5 years from now. I could look very different. I don't know, and it sucked, and it hit me like a ton of bricks when I got that news. It was a relief that I got a diagnosis and I finally have answers. Now I don't have to say I have this weird muscular thing. I can say I have muscular dystrophy, and this is a rare disease. One out of every, I think, 250,000 people in the world have this. And I can at least, there's no treatments, there's no cures, but I at least know that this is what I have, and I can put myself in the best position to succeed moving forward and just adapt.
So you didn't have any like, you took so there was so much time between when the symptoms started and when you actually got treated. Like it didn't advance it anymore. Like sometimes you have something like cancer, and because you put off getting treatment, then it gets worse and you get to a point of no return. But like it would it have mattered if,
No,
the first time you
no, that's
went
the
in, they
thing.
told you like maybe like you could do something like walk with a cane earlier and prevent falling, but there's nothing
Yeah,
because you're
yeah,
not
yeah.
taking like medicine that's,
No,
curing it or treating it or anything. It
no,
is
not
what
at
it
all.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just have to. It would have been. There would have been really no difference. I would just would known what I had, and I would have more clarity. And the guessing game, and I wouldn't have to. I think I would have adjusted to it a lot sooner, mentally and physically. All of it would have been a better adjustment. But there would have been really nothing I could have done. And that's just unfortunate. It's you kind of feel helpless in a way.
On top of COVID, I mean, mind you, this is also going on during like the COVID days, which we all had trouble with mentally and all that. I
Yeah.
can't imagine the mental load on you combining all of the things with the fear of COVID and isolation from people, but also having this unknown disorder that's.
Yeah, I tell you what, like when I got my diagnosis, like I said, I got some relief and it's like, oh, I got clarity now. But then all of a sudden, I got hit with this massive amount of despair. I was fixated on loss. All I was doing was focused on um, everything I couldn't do anymore, and then the perspective of like thinking about things in the future that I just can't do, and it sucked because you know my sports background now. I'm a competitive, creative person, and that meant nothing. I've been successful in my life, and it meant at the time meant nothing because I was just so fixated about loss. But it's funny during that time period, and this is I guess a nice way to transition. It's like during that time period when I lost the ability to play sports, I needed the creative outlet. I didn't work in radio anymore. I work in logistics and transportation. That's my job now. I've been doing for 13 years, and it's not a creative industry at all. It's just it's different, and I needed something. So I essentially traded my jersey in for an apron, and I said I want to become a better cook and eventually become a better baker or become a baker because I never really had a baking experience. I always liked cooking. I cooked on my own just like when I started living on my own. I would just practice and cook, but I really started focusing on getting better, and that was through watching a lot of Food Network, YouTube, tutorials, reading cookbooks. I like to read recipes. A couple, if I was deciding to cook a dish, I'd like to read like two or three different recipes of the same dish written by different people to see the similarities, differences. And then I always like to see if I can find a video of someone making it because I am a visual learner and I feel like I can replicate things when I see it. And I just started practicing. Instead of going to the gym and shooting 100 three-pointers, I was, eventually like making 10 loaves of bread for people and giving it away on to my friends just so I can get better. And I found joy in the kitchen, and it gave me a sense of it gave me a place of calm while everything around me was turbulent and I didn't know what was going on. And once we got to the point of COVID, that's when like I kind of got to the point of my cooking journey or whatever you want to call it, where I didn't necessarily need recipes anymore. I trusted my understanding of flavor and understanding techniques, and I would take on just like really long cooking projects because I had nothing really to do besides that.
What did you start with? Like, what were your first things in the kitchen that you really dug into?
Um, Man, I did like early on. It was like early on. I would just make like really simple things, like you know, just making like meal prep meals, cooking some like basic chicken breast, vegetables, but like learning how to like properly roast vegetables and not have them just be super dry. Eventually, like learning how to roast chickens, working with fish, but then like the big thing I really in like 2016, 2017, when I had that session where I told you I was going to the doctor and I was kind of getting like striking out with getting answers.
Hmm.
I at that point I really wanted to get into baking. I've always wanted to get into savory baking, so I really dove into pizza making, bread making and pizza making, specifically breads and pizzas. I mean, it's all kind of hand in hand anyway. But I got into that, and I started with like Detroit style pizza just because that was best. It was a pizza suited for a home cook. You didn't need to have a super high heat oven, and you just use a Detroit pan. And I would teach myself that, and then I obviously got into sourdough baking. But yeah, deep stove pizzas and bread was a huge part of it for me. And then once we got into like the pandemic and stuff, I started doing like bigger, longer projects. Like I made my own hot dogs from scratch.
I don't know anyone who's made their own hot dogs.
Yeah.
Like that's a really big endeavor there.
Actually literally made everything from scratch except the mustard, and I made Chicago style hot dogs, and I made everything besides the like the mustard and like the relish. I made the buns and made the old hot dogs, and it was very funny. Like, I was
You're
so proud of it.
hardcore.
I was excited. I just like I got it. I would watch like I would watch different like cooking channels on YouTube. There's a pretty popular channel, Binging with Babish,
Yeah,
and
yeah. He
Andrew
just had
Ray.
his book come out, a couple months ago.
Yeah, so like he made hot dogs once, and I'm like, okay, wait, again, I told you I'm a visual learner. I saw him do it. I'm like, okay, I can do this. And so I went to the butcher shop here, and I remember trying to hunt down.
Give me all your lips and assholes, right?
Oh no, I had to get that. I'm like, can you get those in a box? Back those up. I remember going to a butcher shop here, and I was asking for sheep casings. I needed natural casing so I can make the hot dogs and stuff them up. And I remember asking the butcher, and he was like, "Oh." His like eyes lit up when I asked him for that, and he goes, "What are you making?" Like, "I'm gonna make hot dogs." He's like, "You make your own hot dogs?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've never done it." And he's like, "Okay, well, what do you? Here, hold on. What kind of meat you think you're gonna do?" I'm like, "I don't know, lips and assholes. I didn't know what we were supposed to do." And, and so no, he's like, "Here, I'm gonna give you some skirt steak trimmings, and I have a bunch of great trimmings you'll use. We can make you really good quality hot dogs." And yeah, so I ended up making some, and I ended up once I made them and smoked them, I vacuum sealed some, and I took a couple to the actual butcher, and I like kind of paid it forward. I'm like, you gotta try them, and he loved them. So, but yeah, I would like take on these crazy long projects, and it was fun. Like just going to the farmers market. That was one really big highlight of quarantine time was the one place I was able to get to was taking advantage of the great farmers markets in Chicago, because they were outdoors. We still had the mask up, but it's at least like we're out there. And I joke that like I black out when I go to these farmers markets because I get so excited seeing all these different vegetables
You
and
just buy everything.
yeah, buy everything. I remember I came back home once with like 6 pounds of shishito peppers for some reason. I
What were you
just
gonna?
came back with all
What
these
was the
peppers.
plan there? What are you doing with 6 pounds of shishito
There
peppers?
was there was no plan. I just like I got there and I'm like, oh, shishito peppers. Buy them from one vendor. Oh, shishito peppers. Buy them from another vendor. And like I just kept doing that for some reason. But I came back home and I'm like, okay, only ways I've ever prepared shishito peppers prior to that were just roasting them, and like blistering them. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Let me get creative here. So I decided to make this essentially shishito pepper cream sauce. I had an idea based off of a dish called Rajas con crema, a Mexican dish with poblano peppers, onions, and garlic, and heavy cream. And it's like nice, like thick sauce that usually used in like quesadillas and tacos in Mexico City and things. And I kind of like built an idea off of that. So it's shallots, garlic, shishito peppers, heavy cream. Reduce that down, add Parmesan, finish it with a little nutmeg, and all of a sudden I have this like coarse, flavorful, rich sauce.
You don't puree it up at all. The peppers
No,
are just
I like
chunks
it.
in
They're
there.
like yeah, chunks of peppers. You get a little bite of it. It has texture to it, but it just like it's something like I didn't think it was a thing. And then I'm like, okay, what do I do with the sauce now? And I was obviously deep into pizza making, and it's the end of summer at that point. It was like September, and so I'm like, okay, well, peppers and corn go well together. Let me put this on a pizza. So I just made like a simple kind of like grandma style sheet pan pizza with that cream sauce, the shishito pepper cream sauce, some mozzarella, and some corn. And I finished it with like some scallions. And that was my this pizza that I made with just kind of made up. And it was awesome. Like the flavors were great. It was really rich, but like I felt like I was onto something. And then a year later, this is a few months after my diagnosis now. This is, more toward like June of 2020, 2021. I decided to revisit that pizza. I'm like, I want to make this over. I know I could do it better. I'm like, I'm better at making pizza now. I'm more creative. And So I decided to make a Detroit style pizza with that same sauce. I added some cheddar cheese for color, pickled jalapenos for richness because it needed to get some balance with all that cream, and then baked it off. Has like the caramelized cheesy edges, the frico that you see on the signatures of a Detroit style pizza. But I decided to roast off shishito peppers and put one large pepper on each slice, and finish it with scallions. And now I have this actually like show-stopping
Sounds
unique
amazing.
pizza.
I want one. I want a slice right now. I'm so mad. We
Yeah.
should be doing this live in Chicago, not
I we're
remotely.
gonna we're gonna figure out a way. Yeah, I
Yeah,
will
yeah, yeah,
get you my pizza at some
yeah.
point. You're gonna have to.
No, that sounds amazing, and something that's truly unique. It's like so far off of, like, I don't know. There's not even reference points. It's not like a play on a pepperoni or whatever.
No, it's just it was called the I called it the sheesh that's corny. I love naming food. Like if I had a dream job, just let me work for restaurants and I'll give you the pun names for your cocktails or your
So you're the guy, like, when you go in the hot dog shop that has like 50 hot dogs and they'll have a different name. You've got it.
yeah,
That's your game.
100%. That's
Right
that's what
on.
I do. So yeah, that was the I created my own little pizza, called it the sheesh that's corny, and it was fun. Like that was my like it was a nice like achievement for myself, and something I kind of like put a feather in my cap, and I would have friends try it, and I became friends with the owner of Paulie G's here in Chicago, Derek Tung, one of the best pizzerias in the city. It's a franchise of the Paulie G's in New York,
Yeah, I've been to
famous
the
Paulie G's.
one of them in New York, in Brooklyn. In Brooklyn, I've been there.
Yeah. So, yeah, we kind of became like my pizza mentor over the years. I would reach out to him and say, "Hey, you want to try this?" And he would give me feedback, and I had him try that, and he loved it. The refined version. He tried both. He tried the initial during 2020, and then he tried the more refined version. And
And that was a Detroit at the time that you were having him try.
yeah, it was a Detroit. That was like the true, really best iteration of that pizza. Um, and my story, to make a quick transition for you, easy transition for you. I got a call from Derek. A few months later. This is give you on the timeline around like October of 2021. I got a call from Derek, and he says, "Hey, we're putting on a pizza event where we're celebrating the best home pizza makers in Chicago. We're raising money for No Kid Hungry, and I would love to have you come in, be one of the pizza makers, but I want you to make that pizza, that pepper, the shishito pepper and corn pizza you make." And I'm like, "I'd love to. I've never worked in a kitchen before, like a professional kitchen." And so I went to this event. I made 14 of those pizzas, and every slice was accounted for. And I had people coming up to me saying this is one of the best pizzas they've ever had. And I was floating. It was really cool because I never really had anybody outside of my friends and family try my pizza. And so strangers that were paid money to get to this event were like, "This pizza's awesome." And Derek was so proud of me. He said, "Hey, I want to put this pizza on special. We have a spot available in November. We do a monthly pizza special." So I'm like, "Sure, let's do it." And so it was just gonna be a pizza on the menu, nothing more, nothing less. The sheesh that's corny. And then my Spider-Man origin story happens. True story. 2 weeks before it's gonna go on the menu, I was walking my dog Einstein, and I lose my balance and fall, as unfortunately it became kind of a normal thing for me. This time, someone saw me fall. She was walking behind me in my neighborhood, and as I'm on the ground, like literally looks down at me and just keeps walking.
Like what? Like, didn't help you at
No, like I
all?
was a peasant. Like she just literally looked at me like almost like I swear to you, it didn't step over me because it was a sidewalk that was room to walk. She
Yeah.
just kind of kept walking, and I can't when I'm on the ground, I can't just stand up. I have to pull myself up. So I'm like
Right.
pulling
Yeah.
myself over my fence, and I was so furious, like furious at her, but I was mad about myself. It was kind of like what I told you earlier, how I felt like I was just living a lie for a long time, hiding it, acting like nothing was wrong. I was sick of it. I was sick of being that way. And I picked up the phone. I called Derek and I said, "Hey, I want to rename the pizza." He's like, "What do you want to call it?" I said, "I want to call the pizza the Tripping Billy."
Love
And
it. That's
he,
amazing.
he starts laughing. He's like,
And
"Why?" I'm
not in
like,
a Dave Matthews Band way.
0% of Dave Matthews. He actually said that to me. I go, "Honestly, I can't stand Dave Matthews. They left a bunch of shit that they let their shit fall into the Chicago River. Have you ever heard that crazy story?" So no, I'm like, it had nothing to do with Dave Matthews. It's like literally, my name is Billy and I trip. And I figured, maybe I could turn a really tough time into a positive. donate a couple dollars to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Let me share my story of reinvention through cooking and through this pizza. And maybe I can, do something more and show people that you can go through change and have some tough times happen, and but you can like reinvent yourself and do things. I went from Billy the basketball player to Billy the baker and Billy the cook, and food was my life. And looking at look instead of looking, I still like sneakers, but I'm not looking up basketballs or equipment anymore. I'm looking at knives and cookware. This is like the things I'm getting excited about, and it became this transition. And yeah, that started my little journey into food. And as time went on, I started using social media to get my story out. Did my own little like kind of grassroots campaign to like get people to follow, share my story, and did a lot of press. And I used my old media experience because now I had experience in media, and I knew how to receive story pitches. And now, okay, like I know how to pitch a story. I was on the other end of it, so I pitched my story out to people, and I got out, did press, did media, and I realized that maybe food is my voice. And then I started becoming really confident, and I realized that maybe my voice has power, and I can become a voice for the voiceless, for people that have a rare disease like mine in this community, that I can speak up and stand for, bring awareness to a disease and a cause that a lot of people don't really know about, and maybe that the Muscular Dystrophy Association probably reach a demographic that they probably can't even reach, because I'll be doing it through food and through drink and through sports and just through me, through my life. My Instagram name has always been the same. It's the real Billy Z. It's just me.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally the first person I've met who has muscular dystrophy. I know nothing about it, right? Like, it's just not something I see in
Yeah.
everyday life. If I encountered someone with it, I don't know that. So, yeah, you're definitely reaching a whole bunch of other people. I mean, hopefully people hear this show, and raising awareness there. So then this turned into a much bigger thing with you doing pizzas at a lot of places with a lot of different people then.
Yeah, I decided to, I started doing, so it started with the first Tripping Billy, and then I wanted to do collaborations with the restaurants. That was my idea. It's like, let's do sandwich collaborations. Let me do sandwiches. Pizza and sandwiches were like my two niches. And I said, let me collaborate. I'll collaborate with some restaurants, use their massive follow, work with larger restaurants that have big followings, and I can parlay their audience and get eyes and ears on my cause and my story. And started doing a couple, pretty popular sandwich collaborations, and then I decided to bring back the Tripping Billy with a different pizzeria. And then all of a sudden, like a few months into it, the MDA reaches out to me, and they're like, "Okay, who are you? You've raised like $3,000 for us. We don't even know who you are." And I
So
told
you
them,
weren't working with them, like
no. I just
no.
I just did it on my own. I just said I always want to do this on my own. The MDA is the largest non government organization basically that's trying to find a cure for muscular dystrophy, ALS, and like 50 other neuromuscular diseases, by trying to find treatments or cures. They offer clinics. I go to an MDA clinic. I have an option to go to one once a month if I need to, and they organize that where I get to meet 7, 8 different doctors, and caretakers, and they coordinate all of that for me, so I can go visit that at one point. If I ever get to the point where I need a wheelchair, they can connect me with that. So it's like I figured if there's ever going to be a cure one day or a treatment, it's going to be because of them, and so I'm just going to kind of take the lead. And so they reached out to me, and I told them my story, and they were blown away. And they said, "Hey, we would love to make you the ambassador for Illinois." And I said, "I would love that. Let me just only thing I ask is let me just do my thing. I'll always represent you the right way, but let me just kind of do my thing." And I did. I was also very self-aware that like if this Tripping Billy, if I didn't take that chance and rename that pizza and do that, I this wouldn't be a thing. So I thought it would be really cool to launch something I call the Tripping Billy Chicago Tour, where I take my pizza, the Tripping Billy, and take it to different restaurants throughout the pizzerias throughout the city and restaurants, and reinvent it. It's going to be the same toppings that you heard, the same description, but it could be a different style. It could be a deep dish. It could be a tavern style. It could be a New York style, a New Haven. You name it. There's so many different pizza styles around the city, and I thought it'd be really cool and almost like a metaphor for my story of reinvention. Taking my pizza and having it shapeshift to different styles, but essentially it's still the same. I'm still the same person. I'm all the same inside, but physically I might look different on the outside. And I thought it'd be really cool to wrap it together. And now I'm on starting next week. We're on stop number 15. I've done over 50 collaborations in total and pop-ups.
Whoa.
I've done my own pop-ups now in the city here in the past 2 years, and I've raised at the moment $48,000 for the MDA by doing all
Whoa,
these.
that's a huge donation for them.
Yeah, yeah, it's been awesome. And to me, it's not even necessarily with the money. I've been able to reach through social media and obviously through these collaborations. Like reach people throughout the world, and at the end of the day, the money's like a stat. Like I look at it almost like sports. It's like my points per game. It can kind of give me an idea that like okay, it gives me a justification that like yeah, okay, this is what I've done. But more importantly, I just want eyes and ears. I want to tell my story to hopefully inspire you, but raise awareness and break the stereotypes of what this looks like. If I walked in a room tomorrow, I have a cane. I don't need it to walk every step, but I have a cane that's got a bird on it. Like I'm kind of just made it part of my life and my
That's pretty
style now.
baller.
Yeah, I just literally had to lean into it and make it part of my life. But like, I guess I don't, I would say I don't fit the initial thought of what like you look like with a disability. And I'm raising awareness in a way that's honestly I don't think I've ever been done before either. So I'd like to just break the stereotype and just get eyes and ears. And the more people this reaches, the more that would be better. And one day like it's been thankfully Chicago's supported me really well. This is my city, and it's been a lot of press, and I've become you know got notifications or got some honors and stuff in the Chicago Magazine and Chicago Tribune, and people recognize me now in the industry, and it's really cool. And it's not just for the cause. People are like, yeah, no, your food's awesome. Like we
And
enjoy what
and you
you're
got your
doing.
pizza in the hands of Kenji, which is no small feat either, right?
Yeah, that was yeah, he was doing his story or he's working on a recipe for tavern style pizza, and he did a little tour, and I got in the comments said you got to try mine, and his friend that he was coming with heard my story, or he saw me because I did a collaboration with somebody he knows, and all of a sudden I get a DM. He's like, "Hey, can you have your pizza ready for us?" I'm like, "Wait, are you serious?" And so I ended up making a
We'll
pizza.
make it work, right?
Yeah, yeah, I made it. I wasn't even in town. I was in North Carolina visiting my fiance's family, and I was like, they were like, yeah, we'll be there in 3 days. I'm like, okay, cool. I called a friend. I'm like, hey, I need to FaceTime you and let me walk you through dough. I need dough in the fridge ASAP. But yeah, I made Kenji my tavern style pizza. I also made him the Tripping Billy, and yeah, he posted about it the next day. He loved it, and he reached out to me a couple times after for more help with his article. Like with I connected him with a butcher, Rob Levitt, who does he's a butcher for Publican Quality Meats here in Chicago. He needed some sausage, and I got him connected there. So like yeah, it was cool because like I mean I read the Food Lab, and Kenji was somebody I looked up to in the food world for a long time.
He's fantastic. I mean, I can't imagine getting any of my food in front of Kenji.
It was crazy. It was just there's been so many surreal moments in the past few years. It's just like it's wild. Just everything's changed.
I have a question. Tavern pizza. So I grew up in
Hmm.
Massachusetts, and we have something there called bar pizza. Is it
Yeah,
similar? Like, is it the same pizza? Do you know
It's a little
even?
bit different. I've made both. So actually love South Shore bar pie. I've made that
Okay, yeah,
before. So tavern style pizza is a lower hydration dough. It means there's not a lot of water, and it's a dry dough. It's gonna be a crackery in texture.
right.
The difference between bar pie has a little bit more hydration, but it's bar pies are baked in pans initially and
Hmm.
then popped out and like crisped on the bottom. That's the main difference. And then you have like the cheesy kind of lacy edges. They both serve the same purpose for you be in a bar and just to go great with a beer, and our Chicago pizza is cut into what's called party cut or square cut, party cut, little
Right.
squares. So it can kind of people can have it in larger groups can share it, and you can have a beer with it. And so they're similar in that regard, but the textures and everything are just different because it's there's more. I'd say that like bar pie is a little richer than
Okay.
tavern style. Tavern style is more just like crisp. It's really just like it feels like a cracker.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram. I don't know that I've ever had that, but just knowing like South Shore bar pie is something that we have as a specialty. I'm not in Massachusetts anymore, but I have a friend who makes pizzas and has a YouTube, and he has his recipe on there. So I use Tim's recipe for South Shore bar pie.
Is it wait? Which Tim is it? Kitchen and Craft?
Kitchen Craft, yeah.
He's awesome. I follow him. I used his bar pie recipe.
I'm in Maryland. He's in Richmond, Virginia. And actually, the very first time I ever went down to Richmond, I went to the place that he was the chef at,
Oh, okay.
and hung out with him. So he's someone who I met through the early days of Twitter and just have stayed in contact with him.
He's
So,
cool. He seems really
yeah.
cool.
And
I've never talked to him. I learned a lot from him.
a
Really,
really great
I love
guy
it.
and great
Yeah.
chef. And then he really leaned into pizza and stuff, and he's got this successful YouTube channel. And so, I'm friends with him on Facebook. So years ago when he posted that recipe, so I was like, oh, I'm going to make this. So I've practiced that particular recipe at my house. And I like his sauce recipe with the fennel seed in it. It's like
Yeah.
a fennel seed in his sauce. I'm like, yeah, this is right on. So
I like him. I like him a lot. He makes everything really approachable. That's one thing. Like I take in a lot of food content, and I think a lot of it right now is my hot take for our podcast. Like there's a lot of junk out there, a lot of noise. I
no,
don't.
100%, 100%.
I honestly dislike probably 95% of food media I see. I want to learn. I want to like yeah, I'm there to be like somewhat entertained, but I
Black
just want to
vinyl
learn.
gloves, slap the meat and make it jiggle. And then all the ASMR, like I'm going to scrape my knife across this grilled cheese sandwich and let you hear how crispy the
I
sandwich
wanna
is,
don't make
right?
me, I'm gonna rip my beard out. Like everything's sloppy. It's
Yeah.
there's innuendos which make no sense. It's gross to me. Like the slap of the meat thing's weird. The dudes that just like make sandwiches and slam things, everything's slammed and messy. Like
Yeah.
that's not good. And I'm sorry, I'm such a hater when it comes to that. I turn into an old man where I don't like that. Like
Yeah.
I make food content. I've kind of like I've used social media as a way to kind of like use this as an extension to bring eyes and ears to what I'm doing. Like the Malort cookie, for example. That recipe goes viral and people see that, but then they like click on another post of mine. They see my link post of my story. They're like, wait, this is just not just like a random person making a Malort cookie. There's more to this here.
But it also wasn't an obnoxious style of like the jump cuts and
I
a
can't
lot
do
of
that.
screaming and all
I
that
don't want
stuff,
to. Yeah, that stuff's so annoying to me.
You
I
can
just
kind of
don't.
have
Ugh.
a sensational or kind of, because I have some of those recipes too. Like I love scrapple, and
Yeah,
that's one of
oh
those
yeah.
divisive things here. And it's like I have all these scrapple recipes and I make a sloppy sandwich with like scrapple and kimchi and blue cheese. And it's like one of those
Yeah.
things. It's delicious, but I do know that people are going to love it, hate it, and talk about it. But I'm not like in your face screaming, like squeezing it, watching all the blue cheese ooze out.
No, I just I just
It's not my style.
no, it's not my style either. I just like I think like with the food that I create, I don't I'm not reinventing the wheel, but I think what I do is I tell stories through my food. My food's inspired by sports, for example. A lot of it's inspired by sports. I will make reference to things like I created a series called Chicago Squares, where every week I made a Chicago tavern style pizza inspired by whoever the Bears were playing. And I made 17 different pizzas to go with the season. And they were pizzas range from everything from having a jambalaya pizza to surf and turf with lobster to a Chicago hot dog, coney dogs. Like I've done all sorts of like pizzas inspired by dishes in cities, popular cuisines or dishes. But like there's something to it. It's not just I made the viral feta fried egg that everybody makes. Like you'll never see me make like trying to make one of the copied viral recipes or there's smash burger taco everybody's made. Like
I just think there's so many actual like other recipes I want to try, like a tried and true recipe or something, or
Mhm.
really like ratcheting down my skills on something to me that's more important, like getting incrementally better. I was talking about this with a guest a couple weeks ago, like Thomas Keller, like the way that he cooks fish, right? Like he's just
Yeah.
like digging in and like nobody's cooking a better piece of fish. Like to me, that's more interesting than just like, why do we care about like throwing a chunk of feta in a casserole dish with some pasta and throwing it in the oven? Like, I don't know. And then doing it because like 20,000 other people are doing it. Like, I don't know. It's just not interesting to me.
No, that's never been my thing, honestly. And I think that goes to like even like what I'm doing in general with my cause and my food. Like my philosophies and all this is I'm being myself. I will be unapologetically me and be genuine and I'm gonna do things that I like. When I was a producer, and I tell anybody that works in a creative industry, it's like I never pandered to like our audience. I never used songs or music that I thought they would enjoy. It's not what it was. I thought like, okay, I trust my creative process. I trust my taste in things. If this tells my story and how I wanted to do it, and I'm proud of what this comes out, how this audio piece or whatever comes out, I'm confident enough that people will enjoy it because I know I felt like this is good and I trust my skills. I do the same thing with food and social media and the way I kind of handle everything. It's like I don't make things. I'm not trying to make things to just to pander to people. I'm never gonna make viral recipes. I'm not gonna use the same song you ever see. The Doja Cat or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody uses her. She just basically became
The
famous
Paint
because
the
of hit
Town Red
songs.
song that
Yeah,
everyone used
all
in
of
every
that.
video for like 3 months. Yeah.
All of that. They're all the same. And I was always like, wait, does anybody actually like listen to her outside of like a 5-second video?
I feel like general consensus and best practices are basically have been telling us for the past couple of years that like you should follow a trend and not create your own thing, and that the fastest path to success is do the same thing that everyone else is doing with maybe a minor twist instead of just being like completely unique. At least that's how I interpret it.
That's what I know I'm very familiar with that. But I tell you what now, like as a person who started, I mean, I've had Instagram since probably the start, 2012 or whatever it was, like early days. And when I got my diagnosis and when I said I wanted to actually start doing the Tripping Billy, at that point I had, I think, 88 followers. I didn't have a following. I never cared about likes. I never took selfies or put myself on there. I never did videos of me speaking. I needed to do that to get eyes and ears on what I'm doing. And so I started putting myself out there more. And then a couple months into it, I realized like, okay, I should showcase my personality. And so I started being on camera more and I would, voice things eventually and put a face to it. And people got my personality. But like I never used trending audio. I literally forged my own path. I would just have fun with silly things. I'd Photoshop my dog on things. I'd do those videos where you can add heads to the videos and superimpose people on there. And I would just always joke around and have fun with it. But like I knew I was taking the long way and the long road. And I had no problem with taking the long road because I figured people are going to get to know me. I'll build more of an organic following because, like, yeah, I can have a viral video that I have 1 million views tomorrow and a bunch of people around the world see it, but then they have no connection to me and it all fades away. I want people to know who I am and connect with me. And I think that one thing I have is like this audience and following that I've kind of built here as my story and journey has kind of grown here. It's organic and there's engagement. When I put a call to action out there, people respond. When I do a pop up, they've been selling out. It's like every day I get these things fed into my feed, these cooking videos and of these like dudes slamming meat down and like putting it in their mouth and doing whatever the hell they want to do, the weird stuff with meat. And I'll look at their following and it's like, does everybody have 360,000 followers? I always see, and I look at their videos and it's all the same. It's literally even the visual aspects of these videos before I even watch it, the frame and still shot looks the same. Like the guys Salt Hank and these other guys that I can't stand, they do the same formula, and it's like, what's that? I don't want to be a part of that. I'll take my long way, and I'll let my story be played out how I want it to be played out. And yeah, if it takes me longer to grow, that's fine. I don't care. It's my way. I did it my way.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy like what I do, having a engaged community, having people who I genuinely call friends. I mean, I now have a group of people who I've met strictly through, creating food content and podcasts and stuff on the internet, who now I routinely can pick up the phone and give a call. And sometimes, they're the first ones to shoot me a text and say, "Hey, happy birthday, man." Like, before my like best friend does. And I'd rather have a smaller group like that than have all these people and just be, like not engaging with them. I still want it to be at a point where I can respond to every DM, be doing that myself, not having some paid intern or something, handling my communications. Sure, having a bigger following means a lot for you. There's a lot more opportunities, but still, even if you get there, how can you continue to be engaged in your community?
Yeah, part of me, like part of this journey for me, we talked about this earlier when you said, it's like you do something, it's different when you're doing something when you have a main, when you have a main job, and then this, or, versus this is all you have. And yeah, I have a full-time job and I have a career, but I believe my future is in food, and food, something food related. And I think for me, physically, I don't want to own a restaurant. I don't want to work in a restaurant just because it's as many as people. I get this all the time. It's like when you get over to a pizzeria, you gotta have your own sandwich shop. I'm like, we'll get investors to do it. No, I don't. It's not going to work for me. Physically, it's not going to be good for me. It's hard, and there's so much more than just making food that goes into this. And I have an utmost respect for people that work in the restaurant industry. I've learned so much from so many great people here in Chicago that it's almost like a slap in their face for me to say, "Oh yeah, I could just go over to a place and be successful." No, there's a lot more goes into it. Plus, I just don't think I want that anyway. But I love food. I love creating, and I think that like maybe food media, just given my experience, and I don't mean necessarily social media, but like I'd like to host my own cooking show one day, and bring attention to the disability community and disease, the rare disease community, and use it to like gain a larger platform and do cool things. And again, do it my own way. I'd love to do that one day. And so what I've been trying to do is try to basically like carve out a niche for myself, maybe create some streams of revenue that maybe one day I could, and say I can focus and I don't have to have my day job and do a million different things. I can just kind of do this. So I've been kind of like trying to work with brands more, and I'm a brand ambassador for Gosney Pizza Ovens, Pizza Oven Company. I've been doing a lot of work with them now in the past year, and a lot of huge potential coming with them soon. I just did a little brand partnership with Hexclad, and it's funny because
I
I
saw
don't
that.
have.
That just dropped like
Yeah,
today
I
or
just did that. I
something.
just
Yeah.
filmed. I literally just filmed the video yesterday. I just filmed it really quickly and edited it quick and turned it around. And I got some good feedback from people that said that like, that was really well done and came off pretty. For your first kind of like almost like ad post. Um, it was more just like a product, a gifting product thing, but still, it was a cool way to do it. Cool experience to have. But you know, to get some of these opportunities and not be at 25,000, 30,000 as a follower, that's a testament again to the engagement. And then like the brand sees, they obviously see something in me if they want to work with me. So the opportunities will come more when the numbers get higher, obviously. But it's just takes time, and you just have to figure out like how to manage that all too, because that's a whole different world. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm literally learning on the fly. We
You seem to be doing a pretty good job from the bystander point of view.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't, I have to learn. I have a lot to learn. I don't know, I was actually just talking to Chef Art Smith, actually. Now I don't want to be a name dropper, but in Chicago, he's actually followed me like when my story first came out, and we kind of became, I don't even say friends, acquaintances online. He would just message me and we would chat. We never met in person. We finally connected after like a year, and we grabbed dinner and chatted a little bit and talked more about my story and stuff. And he's like, what do you want to do? And we were kind of telling kind of what I've told you already. And he's like, there's a little hesitation in your voice. I'm like, well, he's like, you're a really confident person. I could tell everything you do, but he's like, you still have a little hesitation. I'm like, yeah, I have a lot to learn. I can't just, I'm learning. I can't do everything on my own. I need to like learn from people and pick brains a little bit. And so I kind of like picked his brain because I have to figure out like, I'm so fixated on it. I want to just keep, you know, I, every year's gotten, the story's gotten bigger and it's been out to more people, but like my experiences have gotten more. I've taken that to different levels, and I just want to keep going. I want to go from here to keep going up. I don't want to flatline.
So
I don't.
what's like the next step then? Like where do you have like like a hardcore plan or a loose plan? Like how does this evolve?
It's weird. I'm doing this all. I'm also planning in the process of planning a wedding right now. I'm getting married and I getting married in
Congrats.
October. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's obviously the number one thing right now. But like I just launched a website finally, so I don't have I have trippingbillyz.com, so I don't have to just drive people to Instagram anymore. I can have a little hub for this, and I can showcase things, and it's a really beautifully done site. my friend's girlfriend Morgan, she did a wonderful job. She helped me design the whole thing and put it together, and I finally have a hub now. And so I'd like to just continue, obviously bringing some eyes through social media here. I may start like maybe eventually doing some long form content on YouTube, just to figure that's a great place to maybe potentially monetize a little bit. But with that comes more dedication and time. So I don't know if that's going to go, but I'd love to write a book. I'd like to get a book out there one day because I think my story is obviously very unique, and I have a pretty fun idea for a cook/cookbook. A trip with Billy, recipes from the craziest 2 years of my life, and document my story in real time, kind of like how I told you, but you get to see the accompanying recipes from some of those collaborations I did.
I think
Um,
that's a great idea.
yeah, I think that would be something that I'd like to do, and then see where it goes. I mean, that's what I say. Nothing's. I didn't have a plan when I started this. I knew I was going to work hard.
I've heard you talk in other interviews about manifestation. Now, like, do you truly
Yes.
mean that? Like, are you like manifesting with intent? Like, do you believe that? Like, really
Oh yeah.
setting
Yeah.
intention there?
Yeah, to give you another sports example, I'm not sure how big in sports you are, but I say like lately I feel like I have like Steph Curry confidence. Steph Curry is a basketball player for the Golden State Warriors. He's
Going to
one of
see him next month. My
Are
son is a
you?
big basketball fan, and for Christmas they're coming to DC playing the
Oh,
Wizards.
Wizards,
So
awesome.
Ben's big gift is I got tickets to go see Steph Curry play.
The Stephen Curry reference and analogy I always make is like sometimes he's so confident that he'll shoot a three and just like turn around, just like take a shot and turn around, and it's crazy, and it'll go in. It's like he just knows, and for a long time before any of this, before muscular dystrophy, before anything, I always had ideas. I've always been a creative person, but I never acted on them. I never tried. And all of a sudden, when I had something big like this, I tried. I put myself out there, and I started floating my ideas out and taking these things that I have and just bringing them to life. And all of a sudden, like everything clicks, and I feel like I can throw up the things I'm throwing up now. Are not everything's gonna go in. Obviously, I'm not like arrogant or anything, but I'm confident enough that it will work. And if it doesn't, okay, I'll go to my next thing. I have so many ideas that it's overload sometimes, and I don't know how to get to all of them because I have so many little things I want to do. And when I first decided the Tripping Billy was going on the menu, I told Rachel, my fiance, we're sitting down. I'm like, I'm gonna take this to the moon. I said, I don't know what that means. I really don't, but I know I'm gonna succeed with this, because I will work my ass off. My parents are Middle Eastern immigrants that immigrated here in the 70s, and I say that I have blood of immigrants in me, and I just know to work. I've been working since I was 15. I will always hustle. I've worked through having a disability. I make adjustments and adapt to things when I need to. But I just know I'm gonna hustle and work, and that's where even in this position here in Chicago, it's cool getting to know the chefs and from the different restaurants I've worked with. And as time went on, I'm so grateful. I try to make sure that people always know I say thank you constantly. I'm always thanking people for helping me, just give me eyes and ears, letting me do this, give me the honor. I say that more than anything. It's an honor. You're letting me create something at your restaurant. And no, it's Billy, like, give yourself some flowers, man. Like you're working your butt off. You work harder than anybody. They've joked, called me the collaboration king. I've done over 50 collaborations in 2 years.
That's a lot. That's a
It's a
lot.
crazy with a full time job. It's like I'm hustling. So when it goes to the manifestation is there. I truly believe that I haven't scratched the surface of what I can do, and what I want to do. There's a lot of big things that I want to do that I haven't even tried yet. Like, you know, I want to and I will one day. My big things I want to do, like white whale things, are like I want to collaborate with the Bulls. I want to have a muscular dystrophy awareness night at the United Center for a Bulls game, and maybe have one of my Bulls themed sandwiches on sale, or for sale at one of the vending stands where they donate a portion to the charity. And Like these are big things that for at the beginning I could have said like, no, those are probably just like pipe dreams. They're not pipe dreams anymore. Like I've had contact with these people, and I've had these ideas, and I'm gonna make them work. So I don't. If it takes 6 months, takes 2 years, takes 10 years, it'll happen. I truly believe all this will happen for me. And then like only the slight when I talked about the hesitation when I was talking to Chef Art was like, it's like, what's your hesitation? I'm like, I have to be realistic. There's a small part of me throughout all the confidence, and you remove the armor that I have on my outside. It's like I get worried. It's like, is this maybe it was just a couple years and it was just a thing, and that's all it is. Maybe it doesn't turn anything more than that. That's something I always have to think about, but that's just being vulnerable. And I don't have to listen to the negative voices. I'm feeling confident, and I just think that I just continue to put myself in the position to succeed by connecting with the right people, working hard, being respectful along the way, and then just being true to myself. And everything else the story will just continue to play itself out how it needs to do it. I think my story is, as you've heard it now, I think it's unique. I think I mean, truly unique. I don't think anybody's ever done what I've done to be a home cook, to collaborate with some of the biggest names in your city's food, especially like a large city of Chicago, like Chicago, a big rich food city, and then do it for a cause that's bigger than just me, and representing a whole community, and taking that pressure and putting that on my shoulders. Like I'm confident I can do these things. I want to do these things, and at the beginning, I didn't know that this was I didn't have these I was gonna have these opportunities, but now that I have them, I got to make the most of them, make this count. Um, because in reality, this disease is progressive. It will get worse. So I don't know how long I have to be as functional as I am now.
Go
So let
for
me
it
just
while you know you
ride
can,
it
right?
out, ride it out. And so I think my story hopefully one day will go national, but I didn't want to push it. I wanted it to happen again, just like social media. I didn't need to do Paint the Town Red and reach out to every single national publication and be like, look at my story, look at my story. No, you'll eventually find out my story. I'll lay the groundwork in my city, and in time, with the right ways, right moves, it'll be an organic thing. And when it's ready to be told to a larger audience, it will be told to a larger audience, whether it's through this podcast and other forms that go on, or collaborations or whatever. One day, I'd love to even do the Tripping Billy nationwide tour,
Well, I was going
and
to ask
having
you
my
that, like, if you would consider, I mean, there's so many, if you just stick with pizza, like so many places you could go and do pizza. And I probably have at least four of them if you ever make it out this way.
I would love to. No, that's one thing I've thought about that before. I mean, for sure, because again, it's not like I'm making a pepperoni pizza. I mean, I do make pepperoni pizzas and I make my tavern styles, but like the Tripping Billy tour would be the OG Tripping Billy, or the Tripping Billy toppings, and reinvented to like what I'm doing here in Chicago, but like doing it at some of the best places around the country. I would love to raise awareness and continue to do that, raise as much money as I can for the charity. But really, I want to feed people in the process. I don't really ever just ask for donations. If you want to donate, if you have the means to donate to my charity and you'd love to, and you have the means to, feel free. By all means, I appreciate that. You don't have to though. I'd rather just feed you or get you drunk and have a good time. That's what I want to do in this process. It's a little different aspect of the charity that and fundraising that I do. It's like, let's have some fun along the way. Well, let's learn. You'll learn a little bit too, and bring some eyes to something you've probably never seen before. And we all have bad days, unfortunately, and I'm gonna have more days where I fall and shit's gonna happen. But it's just a reminder that it's okay to like grieve. It's okay to hurt a little bit, but you just gotta get back up and just continue on, and make adjustments, and hopefully learn through the process, and hope that you have more good days than bad, and that's it. Well, there's nothing else you can really do.
Well, it's inspiring. And, you take so much for granted, someone like me who's, you're healthy. I think we all assume we're going to be healthy, right? Like you're just going to wake up every day, and something like that, you figure like, oh, I got to the age of 30 without having, some genetic disorder or something. It's like, oh, I'm in the clear. I'm good.
Yeah.
Obviously something could happen other health wise, but I think we don't
think about how much of our life would change if something like this happened. So
you never know.
Yeah. Well, I think this is probably a great place to leave it. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise.
I always tell guests I leave everything in the show notes, so people will be able to find your stuff. I mean, you've got a pretty good following already, but I hope if our listeners don't know of you, they'll go check out your social media, check out that brand new website.
Thank you.
Maybe they've learned something. I know I've learned something about muscular dystrophy today. So, yeah, thanks for coming on and chatting with me for a bit.
Me. That was awesome. Thanks for having me. And I'm going to make that cocktail, by the way. We started our conversation about the Malort cocktail. Sounds awesome.
You're still here? The podcast's over. If you are indeed still here, thanks for taking the time to listen to the show. I'd love to direct you to one place, and that's chefswithoutrestaurants.org. From there, you'll be able to join our email newsletter, get connected in our free Facebook group, and join our personal chef, catering, and food truck database so I can help get you more job leads. And you'll also find a link to our sponsor page where you'll find products and services I love. You pay nothing additional to use these links, but I may get a small commission, which helps keep the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast and organization running. You might even get a discount for using some of these links. As always, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Chefs Without Restaurants or send me an email at chefswithoutrestaurants@gmail.com. Thanks so much.